Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful idea, how to find your unfair advantage. Now, this isn't about cheating the system, not at all. It's about finding that one unique point of leverage, that one special thing that lets you create a massive, outsized impact. It's about how you can move the world.
You've probably heard this famous quote from Archimedes. It's our starting point for this entire explainer. And it's so much more than just an ancient boast. It's this deep insight into how power and influence really work. It's the core idea behind every big shift, every single David and Goliath story you've ever heard.
Okay, but that was over 2,000 years ago. How does that idea apply to us right now? I mean, we live in a world of giant corporations, of AI that's changing everything by the second. So where do we find our lever? How does one person, or maybe a small team, even stand a chance? Well, that's the big question we're going to tackle today.
To find our lever, we first need to get really clear on what leverage actually is. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but its strategic meaning, that's what really counts here.
So at its core, leverage is all about getting a disproportionate result. It's not about working harder or pushing with more force. Nope, it's about applying your limited time, your limited energy, your limited money to the exact right spot to create a huge effect. It's all about strategy, not just grinding it out.
What's super interesting is how the tools of leverage, the levers themselves, have actually evolved through history. So let's take a quick look at how they've changed over time.
From most of human history, right, the main levers were pretty straightforward. People as in labor and money, or capital. But then a couple of game changers showed up. Around 1440, we got media, thanks to the printing press. And then in the 20th century, we got code. And let me tell you, these last two are insanely powerful because they let you create things that can be copied and distributed for basically zero cost.
Let's just zoom in on Gutenberg for a second. This guy was a risk taker, always in debt. But his invention, it was one of the most powerful media levers ever. It took knowledge that was locked away with a tiny elite and put it into the hands of the masses. It completely rewired society.
And get this number. This just shows the raw power of that lever. In 1455, a printed Bible would have cost you about 100 days' wages. 100. By 1600, that had dropped to just 1 day's wage. That is a 99% price drop. This wasn't just a small improvement, it was a total revolution that made information accessible to almost everyone.
Okay, so if those are the levers, what's the strategy? Well, it's got to be an asymmetric one. It's about knowing you're not the biggest player in the room and actually using that as an advantage. Think David versus Goliath. That's the playbook.
Look, an asymmetric strategy isn't about beating the giants at their own game. If you go head-to-head, they're almost always going to win. They have more resources, more everything. So instead, you change the game completely. You don't need a bigger budget if you have a smarter tactic. You don't attack them where they're strong, you find their blind spots. You find those little niches that they're totally ignoring.
And here's what that actually looks like. Small players win by using things the giants can't. They can use unique information that the big guys miss. They can turn their own customers into a powerful community and asset. They can totally redefine what value even means in a certain niche. The goal is to build a solution for a really specific problem that is just 10 times better than anything that big companies are offering.
This brings us to what might be the most powerful lever of them all, people. But, and this is a huge but, it's not just any people. The source material here makes this absolutely critical distinction between two types, the functional and the vital.
So, the functional person is great. They're competent, they follow the path, they execute the plan, they get the job done, but they often resist change. The vital person, though, they're different. They create the path. They're the ones always asking, well, why not? They spark debates. They're constantly trying to create more value. Think about a software engineer who just closes tickets versus one who questions the whole project and finds a way to make it 10 times better. The functional person is replaceable. The vital person is irreplaceable.
And this quote from Daniel Priestley just nails it, doesn't it? Being purely functional puts you in a really vulnerable spot. It doesn't matter if you're an employee or a whole company, if you're just a functional cog in the machine, you can always be replaced by a cheaper, faster option. Vitality. That's what creates real, lasting leverage.
Okay, now I have an amazing story from history for you that perfectly illustrates this difference between just copying the functional systems and actually understanding the vital culture that created them.
Just try to picture this. The all-powerful ruler of the largest empire on Earth, Tsar Peter the Great, literally goes undercover in Amsterdam. He pretends to be a carpenter, lives in some random artisan's house, all because he wants to steal the secret sauce that made the Dutch so incredibly rich and powerful. He wanted their economic lever.
But here's the thing he totally missed. As David McWilliams puts it, Peter saw the functional stuff. You know, the ships, the banks, the processes. What he didn't see was the vital culture bubbling underneath it all. A culture of personal freedom, of tolerance, of open debate. He wanted the results of their system, but he didn't want the messy, creative, vital energy that actually made it all possible. And you know what? Companies make that same mistake today, copying a competitor's features without understanding the culture that built them.
And, I mean, just look at how vital that Dutch culture was. We think of this stuff as modern finance, right? A public stock market, futures, options. Well, the Dutch were doing all of this 400 years ago. This level of crazy innovation wasn't just a system you could copy and paste. It was the direct result of a free, open, and vital society.
So let's bring this all home. We've talked about the levers of power. We've talked about the mindset you need to use them. Now it all comes down to finding your place to stand.
And so we come full circle, right back to where we started. Archimedes knew he needed two things, the lever and a solid place to stand. The lever, that represents all the tools and strategies we've just talked about. But that place to stand, that's you. That's your unique position, your vital contribution.
And that brings us to the final and frankly the most important question. You've seen the four major levers. You get the power of playing an asymmetric game, and you know how critical it is to be vital, not just functional. So the question is, for you, what is your lever, and where is your place to stand?